Welcome to the Sharp Way Show. It is Larry Sharp. Yes, I am here with you. So happy to see you here at 7 p.m. on the East Coast. And I'm doing a show that I haven't done in a while. I'm doing a reaction show. Yes, a show because I saw something today which bothered me. And that was how everyone's trying to deal with the issues in East, is it Palestine? Am I saying it right? The place in Ohio where there was that terrible accident. And both sides of the aisle are trying their damnedest to, blame the other and get mad and everything that they can possibly do. And they're not doing the most important thing, which is giving you the real answer. And that's the normal. But I saw today on The Hills Rising, both sides, Brianna Joy Gray and Robbie Sauvé, talking about how to solve the problem and what was right and what was wrong. And they were both completely wrong. And they were both missing the point completely. And I really wanted to fix that and make that real and show you what each side will say, why they've made errors, and how we can actually fix this, right? How we can actually fix this. So again, it's going to be good. So do me a favor, click that like button now if you would. It's important if you could do it, please. But more importantly, though, if you are watching this on Twitter, retweet this now. It's going to be a good show. Retweet it now so people can watch it. It's good. So do that now if you could. Support the channel by retweeting if you are watching on Twitter now, and also clicking that like button. It really helps if you would do so. I would appreciate it tremendously. So let me show you what they were talking about so you can kind of see what was going on. This is a piece after they talk about this is after they're talking about what Pete Buttigieg was talking about.
Then over on ABC's Good Morning America, Buttigieg had some stern words for the rail industry.
There's another side to the story, which is making sure that we move forward on rail safety in this country.
See, we weren't moving forward on rail safety before. The kind of stuff they say is just, we're going to move forward on rail safety. We haven't done it before. I just thought of it now.
The NTSB, National Transportation Safety Board, is an independent body, and they are independently doing their investigative work.
Now, you should understand that. It is an independent body, which what he means by that is a government agency is head-picked by the president and okayed by Congress. That's an independent body. Another government agency. Literally, just another government agency. That's what he says. This is critically important. Is it really independent when it's still partisan and based upon the president and a government agency and centralized control? Is it really? No, this isn't what they tell you. And we believe this is the only way around it. It isn't.
But we don't have to wait for their final report to know that some things need to change. And so today, we are pushing forward a three-part drive on rail safety. Things that we're doing at the Department of Transportation to raise the bar, things that we need help from Congress to do in order to hold rail companies accountable.
Now, think about how stupid that statement is on so many levels. Level number one, well, we know there's stuff to be done. Where you been for 2 years? Where you been? He's the guy who said there's 1,000 derailments every single year in America. 1,000. Now you figured it out today. Let's make some safety. We got to figure it out today. You figured that out now. And then he says, we need Congress to make that happen. Why in the world should Congress be involved in the safety of any industry other than perhaps government itself? Think about how dumb that entire concept is. Imagine if you were in your own home and your house wasn't safe. And you're like, my house isn't safe. I better call my mayor before I can make my house safe. Is that insane? Right? Or your store. You own a store. Your store isn't safe. I better call the city council before I make my store safe. No, you can just make your store safe. But we can't without Congress. Think of how backward our nation and society and transportation system is. And we wonder why it doesn't function. By the way, it doesn't function well at all. Why? Could it be because we have to wait for Congress to make things work? This is a problem in itself.
And things that this industry needs to do differently. I got to tell you, ever since I came into this job, I have seen the power that multi-billion-dollar railroad companies wield, and they fight safety regulations tooth and nail.
So one thing, since you've been in 2 years, what have you done to stop that? The answer would be, oh, right, nothing. So you've done nothing. I saw it and look how powerful they are. Why are they powerful? And I want you to think about that. What makes these companies powerful? Well, Larry, what are you, stupid? They have money. Yes, that's true. They have money. But how do they use that money to stop from being safe? They bribe the government. But what if the government wasn't involved in the safety aspect of it? They couldn't bribe the government. Whoa. But Larry, there's absolutely no example of this ever in the world. Well, yes, there is, Mr. Wise Guy. There is. It's called health food stores. Literally health food stores, natural food stores. They're not governed by Congress. They aren't governed by anything. Yet somehow they become safe. Why do they become safe? Well, because if people go in a health food store and they buy something and die, nobody goes to a health food store anymore. And they'll get sued. And they'll lose all their money. Why? There's no government protecting them. Here's what he won't tell you. The reason why these big companies spend all this money on the government is because since the government's in charge of safety, the government protects the companies. I'm not joking, literally by capping how much they will spend. How many times have you heard this happen before? Some large organization says, yes, 45 people died and we'll pay them some money, but we admit no wrongdoing. Why they admit no wrongdoing? Here's how, when the government's involved, wrongdoing is defined. Breaking the regulations. Breaking the regulations is wrongdoing when government controls, because the government doesn't care if you kill somebody, the government cares if you broke the rules. Now, what if the government's not involved? What is wrongdoing? People being harmed. So once you pull government out, wrongdoing is harming people. I'm going to show you as you walk down this road, and none of them get this. They all just think, well, we have to have stricter regulations, which he says, but then these big companies will just change them. Why? Who writes the regulations? Industry, people who are paid by the industry to write them. That's why they then bribe people and change them. So whatever Buttigieg does, let's assume for a second he does something good. I mean, he won't, but for the sake of argument, he'll do something good. They'll just change it in 2 years. Or they'll just ignore it. Or they'll be capped. It is just talk. Meanwhile, things keep blowing up.
That's got to change. The future cannot be like the past. And I am calling for that change to begin right away.
You're beginning saying this.
And it doesn't end there. Buttigieg also hit out against Marco Rubio after the senator from Florida called for his resignation. He accused Rubio of getting too comfy with rail industry barons, tweeting, quote, "The facts don't lie. The 2021 letter you signed was obviously drafted by railroad industry lobbyists. It supports waivers that would reduce visual track inspections. Now, will you vote to help us toughen rail safety accountability and fines or not?"
Yes, what I just said is what he said is happening. Yes. But imagine for a second. You might go, well, Larry, this is what people tell me all the time. Well, Larry, if we don't have the government, they'll just be killing people left and right. Let's assume that I am correct for a second. Or maybe you're correct. Who cares? Let's assume we pull government out. The second we pull government out, all we have to do is make government do one thing. And that is say, if you want to run your railroad, you may. But you must have insurance that will pay for everything. We are not going to cap it. We're not going to help you. Nothing. In fact, if anything, we will be the court system that will punish you if you hurt people. So you must have insurance. So the insurance company will agree to pay for all of these things, period, or you don't run a railroad. And they will go, wait a minute, it's too expensive. I'm going to strike. Good. Then they'll strike. The people will strike and they'll figure it out and they'll make a safer railroad. Or we won't have railroads for a short period of time. Somebody will make railroads. We know we will. Of course we will. The reality of it is eventually they'll have to have the insurance companies pay. Insurance companies are not going to let them be unsafe because then they will have to pay. So by default, the industry will by default have to regulate itself, or they can't be insured, or the insurance company will pay too much. All the government has to do is say, not capped, you must pay. The insurance company must pay for everything, period. No caps, you're not protected. You do that, you will watch the safety increase. Larry, how do you know that? I go back to health food stores. I go back to non-essential medical procedures, which aren't regulated anywhere near as much as essential are. Somehow they're safe. Somehow insurance covers them. Insurance covers them and forces them. You see it in your own job. If you have a 9-to-5 job, if you have one, and your job, you have health insurance. The health company literally says, hey, company, if you do these healthy things to keep your people healthier, we will lower your premiums. You think the health insurance company cares about the health of your people? Not really. It cares about payouts. So if it cares about payouts, to stop payouts, it tries to make you healthy to stop payouts. The industry will do exactly the same thing with anything else, right? With rail lines, airlines, insert thing here, doesn't matter. Insurance companies don't want to pay out. They will force them to be safer. The evidence is here already, but we won't go there at all. We just go, well, it's about more government regulations, which they will change and be protected. They're hand in hand.
Yeah, it's interesting. So Buttigieg is completely right. A number of Congress members signed this letter. It was included down beneath the tweet, asking for basically lower standards for the kind of inspections that might have caught the fact that there were, sparks shooting out from under this train for apparently 20 miles or so before the actual derailment. Fair enough. But when I listened to that Buttigieg clip, I was also struck by the interesting deference he kept making to the NTSB, the National Train Safety Board, talking about how it's an independent organization. It's independent. We have to let them do what they want. So I thought to myself, is that actually him properly deferring to the authority of an independent body to conduct an investigation?
No, it's him covering himself. It's another government agency. So it's like, well, I think my family may be cheating on its taxes. I'm going to have my sister investigate to see if this family's in trouble. My sister's not going to find anything wrong. That's for sure. She's part of my family. They're all the same. This is a joke. This is embarrassing. And Brianna, you should know better. I hope you do. Robbie, you never know any better, but that's fine. Maybe Brianna will figure it out.
Or is it a little bit of him also ducking responsibility? And when I looked into it, it became clear. David Sirota covered this over on the Lever, I believe, and also on his Twitter page, that the NTSB actually recommended to Barack Obama back in 2014 that they adopt safety rules covering the exact kind of compounds that were involved in the derailment in Ohio. So the NTSB can do its job at the same.
Okay, now this is the issue. This is important, what she just said. The NTSB said, hey, you should do these safety things back in the Obama era, right? They can only recommend. So I recommend something. But who says yes? Congress and the government. Well, if I'm the railway companies and I'm writing big checks to Obama or some congressman or Trump or whomever, you're not going to say, well, thanks, be quiet, which is what happened. But imagine if instead the NTSB went to the insurance companies and said, here, our actuaries have found out that if you do this, the chances of a derailment go down by X percent. You can then be more competitive when it comes to your rates, and you won't pay out as much. Insurance companies say, you will do that or we won't cover you. Done. These new brakes would have been installed already. Again, pull out government, put insurance company, the brakes or whatever the thing is installed. Why would I think that congressmen should know what brakes should be on a train or whatever the case may be, or Obama has any goddamn clue how to run trains? They shouldn't. They don't. But insurance actuaries will hire the right people. It's what they do for a living to make sure they'll figure it out and then force them to do it by saying, if you don't, we will double or triple your insurance rates, or we won't cover you at all, in which case you can't run your rail line. It is literally that simple.
Same time, a year later, Obama regulators decided to side with lobbyists and ignore NTSB's suggestions.
What? Politicians side with lobbyists? That's never happened before.
Demands, rather. So at the end of the day, if the NTSB doesn't actually have the authority to implement the kind of safety regulations that they would actually recommend, ultimately, I found some of his framing in that clip to defer to the NTSB, defer to the NTSB, to be kicking the can of responsibility down the road in a similar sort of way to what Marco Rubio was doing as he's demanding action from Democrats, et cetera, at the same time that he was part of the problem as well.
Right.
Let me grab a couple of comments and walk down this road just for a little bit, if I could. A couple people are commenting. Is it Nitram? I hope I'm saying it right. Nitram K says, replacing the ruling class and their servants would be a good start. Well, this goes to my union issue, right? There are several issues here. Insurance is one. An environmental victims unit is 2 in the government, and 3 is fixing unions. Those 3 are right. Brianna's correct when she says there was like fire coming from, sparks coming from the so-and-so, whatever. The workers don't get what they want. Why? because by law, there is only one union, and that union doesn't negotiate with us or anyone else. It actually negotiates with the government. Like, wait a minute, Larry, it negotiates with a private company. If that were actually true, then how in the world could the government come in and break the unions, which they basically did, told them to go back to work? Yes, we should have easier, fairer unions, multiple unions, so that now when people decide, hey, this thing doesn't work, or it's unsafe, or I need 3 guys or 4 guys, they can just go, hey, we're going to strike. But Larry, then there won't be railway lines. Of course there will be. Eventually, there may be a strike for a short period of time. Now I got basically, I'm dropping chemical weapons on towns, right? I'll take a strike for a couple of days over dropping chemical weapons on a town. The fact that we have one union that basically negotiates with the government is monopoly upon monopoly, which is failure, Nitram. That's the problem. We are, by doing the unions the way we do it now, we are creating a ruling class and a servant class by default. Remove government, allow for multiple unions, let people shift and adjust. You know what? If one union is safer than the other, fine. One union go for this place, one union go for that place, want to be safer. We'll figure it out. Maybe one union is overzealous in its safety. Maybe that's true. I don't know. I don't have to know. The workers will figure that out. And maybe some people are okay gambling more than others, and maybe some aren't. I'm okay with that. They will decide, and the workers will have their own power to make decisions. We absolutely can do this. Sadly, we just simply have not. It's been really bad how we've done this. So thank you for putting that. If I could, thank you for popping it up. Let me go ahead and grab a couple more. Adam says, I live in Ohio. I love Ohio, and even I don't know how to pronounce it. I think it's Palestine. I hope I'm saying it right. I'll check. They'll probably say it, but I think it's Palestine. Pete Clark, thank you very much. As always, my friend. It is 31 trillion, 555 billion, 409 million, $398,238.35. And by the way, Pete, happy birthday. So yes, Sam says, funny, I thought big railroads supported Democrats. Didn't Joe Biden specifically campaign on expanding rails, roads, trains? Yes, Sam, it's something else. Unions. He was all about unions. Remember that? He was all about unions. He was going to make it all work out well for all the unions. Didn't work out so well, did he? He broke the unions and has not supported them at all. Look, it's not like Republicans are great on this either. They're not either. But the one thing Democrats do is lie about it. They pretend they're good on these issues. Republicans just ignore it. So, but Democrats lie, which I think is actually worse. I think it's actually worse. So yes, Patty says these accidents happen way too often. You are right. Now more people have poisoned water and land. Yes, that usually happens to marginalized and the poor. 100% true. The government and big news usually ignores these accidents. Patty, you've brought up multiple things. First thing is, most people who are wealthy don't want to live near rail lines. That's true, which is why mostly people who are either middle class or poorer will live near rail lines, because wealthy people move away from rail lines, right? Makes sense. So you don't want to have a loud train coming by your neighborhood. So that's one of the reasons why those types of things will happen to people who are poorer. That's true. But the second piece is, it happens so often that now it becomes ignored, because usually it isn't a massive thing like this. In fact, he's even said it. Buttigieg has said it. This happens 1,000 times a year. And now he's concerned. He's concerned now because it's all over the TV news. If it wasn't on the TV news, he would not be concerned at all. I think that's another key piece, right, that we have here. It's a very key piece. And it bothers me, to be forward. I think you're correct. So let me grab a couple more of these if I can. Sam says, fun math fact, at 60 miles per hour, a train will travel 20 miles in 20 minutes. I wonder how much of the rail goes past no low population centers where there are no observers of said sparks. Oh, well, supposedly the workers on the train, if I remember the story right, they noticed, but they have some rules on they can't say or can't do something for some reason, whatever the case may be. So, I mean, there's some rule on that. I don't remember what the rule is, but my point is, many of the workers have been saying there are unsafe issues on the trains literally for years, that this is not a new thing. And they've been unable to do anything. They can't strike because the government will stop them because, again, one union, monopoly union, bad ideas I've been saying for years. And two, they're not really negotiating with the company. I mean, they are, but they're not. They're negotiating with the government. Why? Because the company, again, these are massive companies who are in bed with the government. So you're really negotiating with the government, and it's not the government's money, right? And they cap everything. So even if I got some people I killed, I'm gonna throw them $1 million and I'll keep walking around. I made $85 billion. So yeah, they're not concerned. I get what you're saying. They're not concerned, right? That's the issue. They're simply not concerned. So let me see if I can find where I was. Sorry about that. I got to find where I was real fast so I can head back to that real fast. Okay. Hold on. I'm gonna get this back for you guys real fast so that we can keep this going. And yeah, all right. Let me grab a couple things real fast. I want to make sure I get this right. I'm sorry, I'm a little bit off, guys. I do apologize. And I will get right back to this. And yes, I'm now prepared. Sorry about that. I will now pop that back up so that we can keep going. All righty. I by mistake dropped where I was, so I was so busy yapping away. I was so busy yapping with you, I didn't keep going. So I apologize. Let's keep going now.
I mean, when government is functioning properly, regulatory agencies, authorities are not supposed to just craft new rules or stop enforcing rules or change course. Congress is supposed to give them clear directions on what the new rules are supposed to be, and then they enforce them. I mean, this is something.
This is a libertarian, by the way. I'm sorry, a libertarian. I'm doing air quotes. This is Robbie Sauvé who's saying, see, Congress is supposed to then give the rules and then enforce them. Why? Why? There is literally no need for this at all. It just puts government in the middle of it. It allows them to be bribed, which they are. It allows them to be corrupt, which they are. It allows them to create monopolies, which they do. It allows them to break unions, which they do. So the left isn't happy because it's breaking unions and forcing workers to work when they shouldn't work. The right doesn't like it because now it's monopoly. It's nothing but bad. It's lose, lose, lose. And he's like, yeah, it's the normal way.
This isn't unique to this industry whatsoever. This comes up in all sorts of areas. I've looked at it most closely in the rules for higher education around expression and due process.
And higher education, a disaster. Education, a disaster. Correct. In every case where this works poorly.
And things where you have aspects of the education department coming up with new rules, and then the schools don't want to follow them because they don't know if they're law or not because Congress hasn't weighed in. Now, unfortunately, we have a reality where Congress doesn't weigh in on enough of this stuff anymore because Congress doesn't properly function.
So yes, this is a libertarian who is complaining that Congress doesn't weigh in enough. How about with wars? Just let Congress weigh in on some wars once in a while. I mean, I would take that, but okay. I wish he'd stop calling himself libertarian. I wish he would just say what he is. He's a Republican who hates Trump, which is fine. I know people who are Republicans who hate Trump. He should just say he's that, and we'd be okay.
But it leaves a lot of regulatory authorities actually in the lurch when they're kind of making up rules and it maybe exceeds their authority, which is not to say that more rules aren't necessarily needed. It's just the agency that's supposed to be doing that is the Congress, and they're not doing it.
Well, sure. I mean, but in this case, the rules were probably, the recommendations were issued. The Obama administration at the time declined to adopt them. And so this is my issue with this. Everybody is engaging in point scoring to a greater or lesser degree in this situation.
She's right.
But there were things that happened during the Obama administration that led to this crisis. There were things that happened to the Trump administration, specifically choosing not to force the rail industry to adopt the new technology on brakes.
So let's be clear about this, just so we're clear. This stuff happened on Obama's watch, on Trump's watch, and now on Biden's watch. So guess what? It doesn't matter if you're a Republican or a Democrat. It's irrelevant. With government bureaucracy making everything worse. It doesn't matter. You can think Obama was the greatest president in the world, Trump was the greatest president in the world, whatever. It doesn't matter. The system is broken, regardless of your left-right paradigm. They're going to go with lobbyists because they always do. Why are they even involved? I say it again. Number one piece, Let unions be unions. Don't make a government mandated one union monopoly union. Number one, because now they're bought and paid. They're bought and paid for. So now the unions aren't supporting the workers. The unions are supporting their lobbyists and their guys and gals to get their stuff done. Number one. Number two, let insurance do its job. These people care about money. Yes, but they don't want to pay out. They will make the industry safer. What government should do, it's going to be nuts here. I think I'm crazy. What government should do is just run the court system fairly without caps so that when people screw up, insurance companies get sued. Yeah, because insurance companies actually pay out. They even settle earlier. If you're suing an individual, that individual fights forever. That company fights forever. If you're suing an insurance company, they settle. That's part of their actuaries. Like they have that in their entire thing. We'll settle this. They'll settle. People will get paid, not 25 years down the road, but in a couple years, they'll get paid. That happens all the time. I've been on juries. If you've been in a civil jury, you know, half the time a civil jury doesn't even sit. They settle as soon as they pick the jury. That's what happens constantly.
Currently using these air brakes from like the first decade of the last century that because they act sequentially down the car cause that slinky effect that forces derailments. When the new electronic brake system that has all the cars stop at once electronically doesn't have that, you know, ricochet effect.
Now listen to what she's talking about. Now I'm not saying she's wrong, but she's talking about how these things had this ricochet. She did homework on this. Why the hell should anyone in government do any homework on this at all? Seriously, why should anyone in government do any homework on this at all? The only thing government has to do is go, if there's an accident and people are harmed, you must pay a price for that, and I'll see you in court and you'll pay that price. I don't care how these things work. It's irrelevant. It's not my industry. If you're in this industry, then you should know. Otherwise, why do I care?
That was a Trump era policy. So again, I'm just deeply skeptical of anybody's real investment in fixing the problem. If we get Democrats criticizing Republicans and Republicans criticizing Democrats, I trust people who are willing to offer a critical lens on the failures of their own party. Fundamentally, it's
or you could trust the people who, like insurance companies, who want to make money and will not want to pay, so they will actually make everyone safer, as we see happening all around us. You could trust that, or someone who will have a critical lens on their own party, whatever the hell that means.
The world is not that simplistic. Obviously, you have to parse what people are saying and look at their records and things.
No. It is simple. I don't want to pay, therefore I will make a better system so I don't pay. It is literally that simple. And I've shown you more than one example of this. There are many examples of this. That literally is how it works. It is that simple.
Things like that. But I'm immediately suspicious of people in a situation like this who are pointing fingers that doesn't also reflect back on the people that are currently in leadership. Mm-hmm. The fact that Pete Buttigieg can kind of go through the morning shows with impunity and not be asked pretty embarrassing questions about what impact Joe Biden had on crushing this rail strike, when part of the demands of the workers in the context of the rail strike we were talking about at the end of last year was to have more staffing on these trains, was to have more capacity to do inspections on these trains.
Now, for those of you who lean left and say, Larry, don't you care about workers and unions? I do. The unions and the workers said we should have some more people or safety, whatever. I'm not concerned. I don't have to know these things, right? So the workers have said so. We should have 2 people or 3 or whatever is the number. Well, guess what would happen if it was left up to insurance companies? And the government must say you must have insurance or you may not run your rail line. Once that happens, and the unions, all the workers, even if the workers went around the union and were just a whistleblower to the insurance company. Say the union is bought by the insurance company. I mean, it's possible, right? But say that's true. So workers could go around, be a whistleblower and say, hey, insurance company X who covers our industry, if we had 3 people instead of 2, here's how it would make it safer and you'd pay out less. There'd be less derailments, less payouts. The insurance company would take its actuaries, look at that, as they do in every industry on the damn planet. They would do that and go, hey, you workers are right or you workers are wrong. Because maybe the workers are wrong, maybe they're right, but they would check it out because they care about the cash. Oh, they're right. They would then tell the company, You need to change your policies. Your union workers are correct. You need to have 3 and not 2. Otherwise, we're raising your rates or not paying or not insuring you. Everything she wants to happen, the free market can deliver, does deliver, and will deliver. What she wants to happen, the government is literally the problem. I've shown you this more than once. The government is literally the problem.
To have days off so they weren't tired and exhausted and were able to actually check if everything on these trains, which
on that
to be clear,
front,
almost 2 miles long, was actually in order.
I was actually reading an interesting report from the director of research at the Brotherhood of Railroad Signalmen, which is a union for people who work on the railways, Christopher Hand. He was saying that they don't have enough time to check the hot box detectors, the software that, or whatever, the device that detects whether the wheels are overheating, which is exactly what happened in this case. The wheels overheated, and East Palestine got some like last minute warning that the wheels had overheated. The question, why didn't that warning take place earlier? Was there some kind of malfunction? But so this is a union person saying they don't have enough time to do these inspections because they're doing too much government mandated training and work of that kind, which is
so government mandated training, because the government has decided what training it is. Government training in almost every case, useless. Let me repeat that. Government training in almost every case. There's some exceptions like military, pretty good military. Besides that, most of it is useless, right? When you stop mandating training, I know I used to work with the VA, and I'm not joking when I would support vets. Some of you know that, particularly after 2004, 2006, 2010, when the vets started coming back from Iraq and Afghanistan, I was doing a lot of transition work, right? Trying to get vets, get their resumes up to speed. I'm a business trainer, coach for a living. I was giving my services out for free, right? I'd go to the VA, help. The VA would create these rubrics. Those of you who work with it know what a rubric is, right? These rubrics where I'd have to make sure I checked every box. And the boxes were like from the 80s. Like I had to talk about the kind of paper your resume was on. This was 2008, 2010. Nobody cared what kind of paper your resume was on. So things like that. You've got to make sure they know how to do this and write a business letter. What? I mean, it was stuff that it was like from the 80s. And they simply would, no, you must do it, Larry. So I stopped working with the VA. I literally had to stop working with them because their mandatory training, their check boxes literally were hurting veterans. I had to stop. I had to start going with nonprofits that were not government funded, who were supporting them better. Like Yellow Ribbon Fund was much better. I work with them. So I work with different organizations to make that happen. There's no way that I could do it any other way. So yes, he is completely correct with this.
Is not, which actually prevents them from doing the work that they need to do.
Okay, well, I listened to a lot of, that might be true. It is also true that the rail industry has been pushing to go from 2-person manned trains to 1-person manned trains, and that the rail industry workers would prefer if there were many more people able to actually staff the train.
Now, this is a critical piece here. Of course, the leadership wants to do that, because if there is a crash or problem, they're capped at how much they have to spend because the government protects them. The EPA protects corporations, not us. For all you EPA people, the EPA protects big business. It does not protect the individual. So of course they don't care. They want to lower it all, lower the cost. There's a problem, we'll pay for it. Life is good. We get protected by the government as long as we follow whatever rules. Here's the issue with the do no harm, no wrongdoing. If they have followed the regulations, which they push, they have by default done nothing wrong. Because again, if government runs it, doing something wrong is following government rules. That is the answer to doing it right. You don't follow the government rule, you've done something wrong. Whether 20 people die or 1,000 people die, doesn't matter. Did you follow the government rules? You did, you've done nothing wrong. So they then change the government rules. This again is the same problem. I feel like I'm a broken record because
at the end of
they were
the
left
day,
alone to do their work.
At the end of the day, the trains are 1.8 miles long. The train that derailed was 1.8.
So I'll say it again. If the union workers had been able to simply talk to their insurance company and say, hey, this would make things safer, the insurance company would mandate it. Done deal. You don't do what the insurance company tells you, you don't get insured. No railroad for you. Someone else will pop up and do it. That's how it works. Now, let me grab some comments and such if I could. I mean, I know I have a bunch of them. And I know I'm a broken record. I do. I get it completely. I know I'm a broken record, but it's because it makes sense. It's because I'm right, and people just don't listen, and it drives me absolutely, utterly crazy. I really want to make this better if I could. So, all right, hold on. Let me grab a couple of these comments. I know a lot of you are commenting. Sam says, in Atlas Shrugged, Ayn Rand predicted inflation, energy production issues, record unemployment, runaway government, and railroad safety / train derailments. So, sounds like America today. You know, there are parts of Ayn Rand that are really on the money. I mean, I'm surprised how close some of the things she said, have been. I mean, not all, some no, right? Some no, but many of them have been right on the money. It's shocking how many things she's talked about have been very much on the money. So yes. Joe says, just joining. Is someone else calling themselves libertarian? I'm the only real libertarian. It's true. You're not wrong. You're not wrong. You are the only real libertarian, and somebody was trying that. So yes. Joe says, over the years, the government has been responsible for Amtrak. Yes, as well as managing air quality. How do you suppose we replace the government piece? I think I just mentioned it, right? I just mentioned the idea that is how you do it, right? You use insurance. You use insurance to cover it, like many other non-regulated industries do. And you don't see, there is more problem. Amtrak hasn't been profitable ever, has it been? Ever. Amtrak's not profitable, right? At air quality, I mean, we're seeing that now, problems, right? Government does not do a job well at all. Patty says, thinking freely is difficult for many people. True. Well, speaking of thinking freely, guys, do me a favor. If you are on Twitter watching this, please retweet this now. It really does matter. Please do it, right? If you want to support the show, there are two ways you can support the show. One of them, you can super chat if you want to. Super chat if you want to. If you're on Larry Shop YouTube, you can super chat, or you can support my sponsors, theadvocates.org. Head over to The Advocates, take the world's smallest political quiz, or take one of their single issue surveys, or take the human respect test. That's an interesting one. Take the human respect test and share your results. It supports the show by supporting my sponsors. It's free. So if you've got a few minutes, please take one of those surveys or the test and share it online. It makes the advocates happy. I'm happy. Everybody's happy, and it's free. If you want to actually help me out directly, you can always super chat on Larry Shop YouTube, but you can also do the simplest thing. Click the like button. It is that simple. Click that like button, share it on Twitter, like, comment, share, as they say. Critically important. I really hope we can make that happen. It really is that important. All right, let me go back, if I could, to a couple more comments. Jericho says, I've heard some examples of how the EPA protects the corporation, like you said, but can't explain how that works. I believe it prevents individuals from suing, instead they pay a fine. Is that true? Two ways it protects, Jericho. Number one, it caps how much a corporation spends. So as an example, I'm making this up. I don't remember exactly what the number is, but for the sake of argument, it's $10 million. I don't know what the number is, but sake of argument. So now there is a massive spillage, and lots of things are broken, and there's water. To Patty's point, there's all types of pollution in the water, in the ground, and to clean it up, well, it costs $100 million. Well, they only pay $10 million. You go, Larry, it doesn't seem fair. It doesn't. You're right. But it's a thing called the super fund. The super fund is supposed to protect and pay for the rest of it. The super fund was supposed to do that. The super fund's empty. The super fund was supposed to be collecting little bits here or there from other companies for the super fund to pay the rest, to protect, from a massive attack. It was a form of insurance. That was a form of insurance, Jericho. They could have just got insured. They didn't. The government thought it could insure better than an insurance company by making the super fund. I'm not making this up. This is true. So the super fund obviously is out of money. So that's why you look across many states, to include New York, and there are many areas that are devastated with no cleanup. Why? No one's responsible. The only person responsible is a super fund, which is out of money. So it just sits there and nothing happens. That's how it protects them, right? That's how it protects them. But not just that. The EPA does things like it fines some company. Great. We're talk about fining in a second. People love to fine companies. Virtually useless. What, Larry, shouldn't they pay? Yes, they should pay to give the people who've been harmed something. Yes, but does it hurt the company? No. The company just raised its prices, or whatever the case may be, whatever. The company doesn't actually care. The company doesn't care. Fining the company is good if you're going to pay for the people who are harmed. But the problem is most of the fines just go to the government. So the government goes, oh, great, another problem? Well, fine, and we'll get a bunch of cash. They don't give that money back to you. That money goes into the bureaucracy. So the fines go into the bureaucracy. So the government's like, oh, good, another problem. I'll fine the company. They'll throw me more money. The company already put this as part of their way of doing things. So nothing gets done. That's why these fail. We've had the EPA now for what, 50 some odd years? Am I about right? 70, 72? Something like that. Whatever. It's about 50 years, give or take. And are we all of a sudden not having problems anymore? Tons of them. It didn't do anything it was supposed to do, Jericho. It's a joke. It's a joke. It's like the FDA, right? I always go to health food stores. Health food stores actually do more, are safer than the FDA approved drugs in Walmart. I'm not making that up. I mean, that's a fact. FDA approved drugs have literally killed and maimed millions of Americans, if not tens of millions of Americans, and are responsible in large part for the opioid crisis. Where are all the deaths from health food stores? Natural food stores? None? I don't know any. I mean, maybe there's one or two, maybe, but none that I can remember. None. And they're not regulated by the FDA. Exactly. So I know I went long on that, but I want to make sure you understood what I was talking about. It is important that you see what I'm talking about. It is important that you get that piece, that people understand that. So yes. All right, so I keep going down here. Let's see here. Eric says the issue with the U.S. railroad industry is a lot like aerospace. There's no private industry society setting standards. Standards are more important than regulations. Let me say that again. Eric is completely correct. Standards are more important than regulations. Why? When do regulations change? They change when corporate lobbyists change them. That's when regulations change. They just explained that in our video. That's how it works. But when do standards change? As we gain more knowledge, as the industry changes. Standards are far safer, far better than regulations. Regulations rely on government to understand every individual industry to make the changes. Insanely stupid. Standards rely upon people in the industry making changes as they see problems, which affects them. Much better. You are completely correct, Eric. That is one of the biggest pieces that we have to worry about. 100% yes. Let me grab a little bit more if I could. It goes a little bit further, and I'll cover one more aspect that some of you may not realize that I was bringing up on top of this. There's one more part to this that matters.
Miles long. There were 3 people on this train because there was a trainee, a conductor trainee. But generally speaking, you're looking at a situation or a train. How long does it take to walk about 2 miles? About 40 minutes. And that's if you were just walking and not actually conducting an inspection and trying to have critical faculties at play. So people are being asked using this PSR, the primary complaint. This is the first time I'm hearing that. I don't deny that. Of course, I've got administrative things in my job that make my job difficult. Everybody does. I have some skepticism that given that what we know about the breaks, what we know about the staffing, and what we know about union members have been saying for months now, years now. It's been 3 years they've been arguing around this contract. That
3 years, this contract. If you are on the left or lean left, how can you be okay with this type of union? If any of you watched my policy show last night, I was talking about breaking up monopoly unions so that we can have multiple unions. I was talking about unions that actually negotiate with the people they work for, not the government. All the unions that are monopoly unions that work for the government screws them constantly. Here in New York, our corrections officers, state corrections officers, didn't have a contract for 3 years. They literally kept working without a raise. They took zeros for 3 years. No contract, too bad. Just keep working, no change. These rail workers, the same thing. No contract, fighting on a contract for 3 years. Why have a union? You know why? Because the law mandates a union. This is the problem. We think if the government supports and mandates unions, well, now we're winning. No, now you're losing. Safety is going down. People are dying. There's basic chemical explosions inside towns. The workers are unsafe. They're dying. Unions are fine. State-mandated unions are terrible. Monopoly unions are terrible. Let the union workers strike as they see fit. Let them be whistleblowers as they see fit. Let these companies get insured by the private market as they need to. Everything changes. Everything changes.
The primary issue here is the fact that there is cost-cutting quarters by these train companies who don't want to pay people a living wage, don't want to let them have a break.
Yes, but the government won't let them strike, so the union's useless. So they take advantage of it because they're in bed with the government. It's what I just said. But if you ask Bree, you know what Brianna will say? She'll go, well, we need more government unions, more government. No, let labor actually negotiate with the people they're working with in any way they see fit. Let labor negotiate. Yes.
Because they have this PSR, precision railroad scheduling, that makes it so that they are able to make a lot of money by having incredibly tight schedules that don't allow for any kind of personnel changes. And until we get to the bottom of that, again, we're going to have 1,000 derailments a year, just like we've been having. And they're going to, I'm afraid that this is going to kind of sink back into the back of our minds, because not every derailment is accompanied by, 1,000-foot plume of smoke and toxic chemicals captures the public imagination.
Yeah, well, make them pay for it. They should pay for all the damage they cause. I think that's the right thing to happen. And companies that cause massive destruction or loss of life, they should pay for it. And that will hopefully disincentivize future risky behavior, disincentivize the kind of cost cutting, et cetera, the not following proper safety protocols. That would be the way to disincentivize for them from doing that.
I'm out of curiosity. We've talked a little bit about the fact that there are these, the statutory cap for damages in like $250,000, something that's very minuscule. At the same time, we know that the damages from these kinds of cases often don't manifest for years, decades even.
Also true.
The nature of toxic chemical exposure and carcinogens can be very far out, and that raises a huge causation barrier for litigants who are trying to prove that this incident caused their cancer. It's very, very...
Okay, let me cover a couple of what she's trying to say. What he's saying is they should just pay all the money. She's saying it's hard to pay all the money, because sometimes you don't know how this affected you, because it doesn't affect you for years, right? You don't know that the chemical you took in your body now, if it affects you 2-3 years from now, 5 years, you don't know. Number one. Number two, she says, and it's a barrier. People don't have the money to sue and such, which is why I'm saying insurance companies. If it's an insurance company, what will insurance companies do? What do they do all the time? They settle. Now you might go, well, yeah, I can't afford a lawyer. You won't have to. It's damages. There are literally tens of thousands of lawyers who will happily take your case for free. You see their commercials all over the place. They'll take your case. They'll get the settlement. You'll get a check. Is it perfect? No, it is not perfect. Is it 10 times better, if not 100 times better than now? Yes. 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 Now, Robbie is going to sit here and say, well, no, they should just pay. They should just pay. No, that isn't going to stop them. It's not, because if they're insured, it's not just going to stop them. Now, the insurance company would stop them. So that's the point. Because if they keep having accidents, the insurance company will either raise their rates so much or not insure them. So then by default, the insurance industry gets rid of bad players, because they'll stop insuring them, or they'll make their rates so high that they can't compete in the open market. One way or the other, insurance takes care of that. But there's one more piece we have to add. I talked about this in New York State when I was running for governor. The idea of an environmental victims unit. Let me tell you what's actually happening. You guys, I want to talk about this for a few seconds, if I could. What actually happens in boardrooms is there are, whatever, in the case of, we'll make this up, 11 people on the board, I'm making that number up, and they're talking about this thing they're going to do. And they say, hey, we should, in the case of trainings, we should have a 2-mile train, and let's get rid of all these safety things. We've already done all these things, blah, blah. Here's his plan. How much will we make? And the lawyer or actuary who's there, who's either part of the board or with the team of the board member, says, yes, we can do this. And if we do this thing, we're going to probably make about, whatever, $10 billion. Oh, $10 million. Great plan. Awesome. What's the downside? What happens if there's an explosion or something? Well, with the super fund, blah, blah, it'll cost us probably about $1 billion. So we'll lose about $1 billion total if we count lawyers. I can probably cut it down to about $500 million, blah, blah. Oh, we still make 10 billion? Now I make about 9 or 8. Okay, good. Do it. Then they go to lunch. That's it. They never think about the decision ever again. That decision might literally have cost, I don't know, 100 lives, 1,000 lives. Who knows? They will never think about the decision ever again. Why? They're covered. They are safe. They will lose some money, which they planned. They'll deal with, right? They'll make it up some other way. Let's say Robbie's right. If to pay another $5 billion or whatever, great. One or two things will happen. They just won't make as much money that year, or they'll just raise their prices or change something or bribe some congressman. Things will change. So change this. Now make what I call an EVU, which is an environmental victims unit at the federal level. I think it should be at a state level. That's my but you can do federal if you want to. I like state level. At a state level. So now you have a problem. Something happens. Right now, an AG, an attorney general, has no incentive to pursue a case against an executive. One, those industries and those individuals who have cash are donating to the AG's campaign. So they're not going to bite the hand that feeds them, right? That's number one. But number two, they don't know how. You're almost never going to find an AG who knows how to prosecute environmental crimes. That just almost never exists. They don't know how, and they don't want to. So no incentive. But if you have the environmental victims unit within at the state level, this unit is lawyers and activists, and their job is literally to create a case against the individuals on that board who made that decision. I'm not joking. You create a case that will pierce the corporate veil. So now they get to go through, and this environmental victims unit literally hands the case to the AG. Here is the AG, here AG, here is the case against Jane Doe and John Smith, who they made the vote. They put their hand in the air and said, yeah, let's get rid of all those things. Let's just do it this way and don't worry about it. Let's put a case against them. And now they will either have a civil case personally, or maybe even a criminal case, but a case either way against them personally. Let that happen one time, just once. One time, what will happen? Now we go back to that boardroom I just talked about. We're at a boardroom now. And some guy says, hey, I got this plan, cut these regulations, cut all this stuff, and we'll make $10 million. And somebody gets up and goes, okay, so what happens if there's a big explosion like in East Palestine? Oh, well, we'll probably lose about $1 billion. Okay. And they might come after you personally. What? Yeah, they might. It's possible. Ohio's got an EVU. Damn that Larry Sharp guy. They have an EVU. If you vote yes on this, they might come after you because it's going to be in the minutes. They're going to see who voted yes. It could be you. They might come after you personally. Either civilly, you have to pay personally in your own pocket, or they might come after you criminally. You might do time. All of a sudden, you will find they won't be voting like this anymore. They won't just vote and go to lunch anymore. This is a cultural change. You want to actually change this. 3 things. Number 1, pull the government out, create industry standards based upon insurance. The government's goal is to ensure that no one does anything without full insurance, no caps. The insurance companies by default will begin to check people. People who make errors constantly will be uninsurable. The industry will by default police itself. Right now, it doesn't. People make the same mistakes again and again and again. Add on top of that, with the insurance companies, unions that are not monopolies. Individual workers get to pick their unions, unionize as they see fit without anything being mandatory. They will figure it out on their own. They will negotiate effectively. They will then create their own whistleblowers. They will then get a hold of things and they'll make actual safety changes because they will work hand in hand with the insurance company to make sure everybody's safe, to make sure no one is making massive payouts and people aren't dying. Together, they come together right there. Add one more piece, and that is an environmental victims unit. So now the individuals who make these horrible decisions can be charged either civilly or criminally, depending on the situation. And now they will have to change how it works. Let one of them have to pay a personal, $1 million or whatever, or go to jail for a year or whatever the case may be. Watch everything change. Actual change. That will actually fix things. That's how things will actually work and make things better. I've been talking about this literally for 5 years. No one pays attention. This keeps happening again and again and again. We can change it with these 3 things. insurance, non-monopolized unions, and environmental victims unit. These 3 cases fix this. Ongoing. There'll be some rockiness at the front, but that'll be the end of it. Let me grab a couple comments if I could. A lot of comments. I appreciate all the comments, guys. And by the way, as I say all the time, click that like button, please. It does matter. If you're watching this on Twitter, please retweet this right now. If you're watching this on Twitter, it does matter. If you're on YouTube, you can super chat if you like. It will help out. But no matter what, support my sponsors, theadvocates.org. Head on over there, take one of their quizzes, take the World's Smallest Political Quiz, and share it. It's free. It makes my sponsors happy. Please do so. It does matter. Please do that if you would. And as always, I bug you all the time. Click the like button so I can get past all those algorithms. So yes. All righty. Let's see here if I can keep going down here. All righty. Sam says, did she just say the cause of this train crash was because of labor rates? She did, but I think what she meant, I'm not sure what she meant, but what she might meant is that you had laborers who were being ignored, right? Whenever someone wants to fix a problem in any organization, one of the first places you want to go to is the frontline workers. The frontline workers usually know exactly what's going on. Not always, but they usually do. So if you go and interview them, I do that when I go into companies to talk about, when I consult, I often ask frontline workers, I interview many of them. When that happens, you begin to understand what's actually happening. They often know they got ignored. Why? Monopoly union. Who cares? Shut up and go to work. I mean, we don't worry about you. We worry about our congressmen. That's what we care about. That's why. So Jericho says, thanks for helping us understand about the EPA. I've also heard that corporations actually budget for fines from the EPA. Yes, it's correct. Knowing it would be cheaper than people harmed getting compensation. Correct. It's exactly right. So it becomes part of business. Remember, when you're in big business, the government is your business partner. There's no exaggeration. That's actually true. When you are in big business, the government is your business partner, right? When you're a little guy, the government is your mob partner. Well, not partner, but your collections racket. But when you're a big business, they're actually your partner. So you have to actually work with them and pay them. So yes, that is correct. Yes. So, all right. Robert says, when private companies are fined, the cost of those fines are passed on the consumer. Correct. I'm not sure what the answer is, but maybe top managers should be pushed out and fined. But yeah, insurance would be involved too. That was my point, Robert. That's why you have the EVU. The Environmental Victims Unit makes that work. So freaking votes, but I don't know what that means. Are you mad at me because you think I'm better than Republicans and you're jealous? Could be that. I mean, I am. It's true. I mean, maybe. I don't know. Is that what you meant? I'm not sure. Missy says, make sure you hit that like button. Yes, absolutely. Excuse me. The neutering clip says, Larry, here's a better idea. We need to overturn Citizens United. Corporations are not people. Limitless dark money is not speech. Voting is your speech. Yes, yes, and yes. I agree. But even if you were to do so, you still want government out. So I wouldn't say better idea. I would say in addition to. I think you still want government out. But yes, I agree with you also. So I would say let's do both. I completely agree. So let me finish this up if I could, guys. I'm sorry. I got a little frog in my throat. I apologize.
Difficult. And the reality is that as much as you and I both agree that the train companies should pay, historically, the reason why behavior never changes is because they don't actually have to accommodate. They don't actually have to pay for the full cost of the damages that they've caused because the legal system advantages rich corporations because of their ability to have legal
I support changing the legal system to unlimited.
It's not legal defense. She's wrong on that. I mean, she's a lawyer. She should know better. It's not legal defense. They simply change the rules. They simply change the rules. That's it. So, by the way, that libertarian lady says, can't wait to meet you at our Gold Standard Rally this Saturday in Duval County. Yes, I will be in Duval County. Jacksonville, Florida, this weekend. If you want to see me, if you have to live in that area, please go to this event right here. You can see it's a Facebook event, Gold Standard Rally. Please head on over there. You will see it if you want to. More than happy to meet you there if you happen to be in that area. Thank you so much, libertarian lady.
Limit the liability.
But it's not about limited liability. It's about the legal system itself disadvantaging average people who are put in a situation where they, 20 years down the line, have to prove that their laryngeal cancer.
This part's not true because lawyers always create class action lawsuits as long as your insurance. There's literally a class of lawyer. Their entire world is feeding off of insurance companies. I'm not joking. There's a class of lawyer. That's what they do. This part, I mean, the outcome she's talking about is a real outcome, but the reason she's completely wrong. This can be fixed with what I just said. Just make the insurance companies pay, get the government out, this goes away.
Had anything to do with a toxic spill 20 years before. It's just a very difficult burden for them to meet. And moreover, they don't have the same resources to pursue that kind of litigation that
they totally do. Lawyers do this for free. That she's incorrect. The problem is many people who are socialist left immediately go to the poor people don't have money to do, which is often true, which is why it's a go-to for them, because it's very often true. In this case, it is not. Lawyers do this for free every day of the week. You see commercials on TV all the time.
Corporations do. I mean, that's the reality of the situation. We can both sit here and say the corporation should pay, but the corporations know, in all likelihood, they're not going to have to.
I mean, they should pay for.
That's correct, which is why my point is you put insurance companies on. If the insurance company has to pay more than once or whatever, the insurance company will no longer insure the company. The company will have to go out of business or its entire board be removed or whatever the insurance company's rules will be. If this board is doing bad things, the insurance companies know, these are the bad people on the board. I'm not insuring you. You are basically removed from the industry by default. That's my point. You add the insurance company and those people are dealt with. You then add on top of the EBU, the individual now pays the price.
For the cleanup costs associated right now. I don't know.
But not that's
well, those things are difficult to prove. I mean, and there are people who claim.
What a terrible take by Robbie. I wish he'd stop calling himself libertarian. He's really embarrassing us. He goes, well, it's hard to prove, so don't pay. That's not how it works. That's not how it works, right? An EVU, an Environmental Victims Unit, is very libertarian. It is libertarian because it is holding people accountable for their actions. So the individuals who made the vote on that board meeting to get rid of all the safety or to ignore the safety issues or whatever the case may be, they get punished directly, either civilly or criminally, depending upon what the EVU can put together. Like, obviously, environmental crimes are difficult to prosecute, but this will be their job. Activists and lawyers who do this, they will decide what's the best punishment to do this. That's what you don't ignore it because it's hard to prove. It's hard to prove murder. Do we not convict murderers now? What a terrible take this is.
They get sick later in life. It has to do with some kind of environmental harm, and you can't necessarily adjudicate those things.
And that's the problem. And that's
Havana syndrome, et cetera, and over again.
I don't think that when you look at communities like the ones around 3 Mile Island in Pennsylvania and a million other dumping sites and toxic events around the world, the people who've been suffering and dying in Ecuador because of the Chevron spill in the Amazon, that you can kind of say, oh, well, this is probably imaginary. Who knows what's going on here? The reason why some of these are successful, we all watched and loved the Aaron Brockovich story. We've seen people in these communities know exactly what's happening to them. The question is whether the court system is adequately designed.
Now, this is a point. It's not the court system, right? She's right, but she's not right. She's right with her outcome. It isn't the court system. It is, there's no real way to, as I'll see if I can grab, is it Ed Bid? There's no way realistically to put the CEO in jail to punish the CEO. Hence, insurance and EVU. I keep bringing this up. Why? It's the answer to all the stuff they're saying. They're talking stuff. I have the answers. Larry, you always have the answers. Yes. If you watched my policy call yesterday, I talked through these things over the course of months, literally months. We talk through these things. So I have solid policies to fix things. No one else does that. Why? They don't have to. If you're a pundit, you do this back and forth. If you're a candidate, you don't care. You just pick your left or right paradigm and things keep collapsing. So yes.
To force corporations to internalize the risk. And many people, including a law professor that I interviewed for an episode of my podcast that'll be coming out tomorrow, explain why just fundamentally it's not well suited to that task. So it raises the question about whether or not we should be raising the statutory caps and making them statutory minimums for what these people have to pay out.
No. Don't do minimums. Just don't cap it.
because otherwise it's not clear to me that there's going to be enough of a penalty to get them to curb.
I mean, the downside of doing all that, though, I mean, raising their regulatory costs, their regulatory burden, that they pass those costs on to everyone else. They fire more people. They don't just eat that.
Wow. Robbie, bad take upon bad take upon bad take. Wow. So let them kill people because they'll just raise our price. Wow. Brianna doesn't even know what to do. I'm on her side on this one. Brianna, I'm on your side on this one. I am. I'm with you on this one. Okay, go ahead.
I mean, people working in America need these jobs.
They've cut their staff by 30% in the last 10 years.
But they're going to cut it by even more the way we're headed.
Right. So you can actually...
So you could just let them unionize on their own without government interference, and then they would fight for the right workers in the right way. Add the insurance part, as I've been saying, the EVU, all this goes away. And then the bad guys, whoever they are, don't get insured, or they may even go to jail.
Yeah, so you can beat up on the companies that provide working class people with the jobs they need, or you can, try to find some way to structure.
So you know what? Let's just put them all back in a coal mine. Wow. Okay, bad take, Robbie.
The legal system so that when an egregious harm is perpetrated, the people who do it pay for it.
So one of those ways to restructure the legal system that some people argue for is to have a strict liability standard. And until I believe around the 80s with a Richard Posner decision, it was the case that when you were transporting very hazardous material.
All right, very hazardous material. This is the problem. The government's deciding what very hazardous material is. That's the problem. The government's deciding what's risky behavior. How does the government know any of that? It doesn't. But you know who does know what risk is all about? Literally insurance companies. That is literally their job, to assess risk. That's what they do. That is literally their job. They have thousands, and when I say thousands, I'm not exaggerating, thousands of actuaries, and their job is to assess risk. That's what they do every day, all day long, is assess risk. So let them. They're good at it, and if they screw it up, then the insurance company pays a price. So then let the insurance company correct everyone. It is their job.
The law said, look, if you want to deal with an extremely risky behavior and profit off of extremely risky behavior, if something goes wrong, you are strictly liable.
I don't care if you want to profit off of risky behavior. If you hurt somebody, pay for it, risky or not. This is the problem. Now we're making judgment calls on what is risky and what isn't risky. It is irrelevant how risky it is. If you are killed or someone you love is harmed or killed by something, well, if you're killed, it won't matter for you because you'll be dead. But if you lose someone you love, or you're wounded or something like that, or injured heavily, then your life is affected by that. Someone should compensate you, right? That's what matters. Whether it's risky or not isn't the point. The government shouldn't even be deciding what's risky and not. Again, insurance companies' jobs. Assess risk.
Meaning that no matter what, if there was, something outside of your control, whatever it is, you have to pay. What Richard Posner did was switch it into a negligence standard, which means that, hey, if a deer runs across the tracks, if something happened, you have to prove that I was actively negligent in order to recoup anything from me, which again is another way in which the legal system again and again and again is changed so that all of the risk and burden go on the American people and on the public and never on these corporations. Because this line that seems to work on everybody is that corporations are the most vulnerable constituency in the world, and we have to protect them at all costs or the jobs are going to go away.
People don't believe that. That you just made up.
Meanwhile, Americans are.
I'm sorry. Robbie believes that for some reason. Like, if a railroad company goes under, there'll be no railroads. I don't know why Robbie would think that, but
dying as a consequence. And America didn't used to be this way. And frankly, these industries used to be thriving, and more of a share of their profits used to go.
Yeah. So anyway, this issue I wanted to bring up, I hope that part was clear. I wanted to make sure I covered that so you saw there is an answer to this. There is a policy answer that can repair this and other things too. And if you see it and like it, then do me a favor. Share this, right? Share this with others. Hit that like button. Do that so that this can get out to the best of our ability. It does matter. So yes. Patty says, shouldn't very hazardous material and human beings both be transported with care? Oh, wait, I'm a bleeding all liberal. Sorry, I got that all confused. Yes, Patty, right? In the long run, we want to make it to where individuals who are making those decisions have to care about people, whether they actually care about them or not. Look, I hope every person cares about others, but we know this. Some people don't. And some of those people are in charge of stuff. That's a fact. I wish it wasn't true. It is. So let's make it in their best interest. Here's the difference, right? So many people think that corporations are evil. They're not. They're apathetic. There's a difference. Evil means a corporation wants to hurt, wants to crush. It doesn't. It just doesn't care. It wants to make the most money possible. If it hurts people, okay. If it doesn't, okay. It doesn't care if it hurts people. Now, why does that nuance matter? Because if a corporation is actually evil, then it must be destroyed. It will always do evil. It's evil. If it's apathetic, if you change the environment to where it will make the most money by not harming people, it won't harm people because its goal is to make the most money. Or in this case, lose the least money. If it loses the least money by being safe, it will be safe because it doesn't care about safety or not. It cares about that. That's the critical piece. So you're right, Patty. They should care about both the hazardous material and human beings. Both, all of them matter. The hazardous material matters because it will affect the human beings, right? That's the reason why it matters. So if we set up this system I'm talking about, you will see a change. And I repeat it one more time for those of you who didn't get it. Number one, get the government regulations out and instead put in insurance standards. Any rail system, transportation system at all, company with this airline, whatever it is, if there is a problem, an issue, an accident, their insurance must pay for everything. No cap. Their insurance must pay for everything. If they are uninsured, they may not run their company in the system. They may not be a transporter. They may not transport things. So to your point, Patty, transporting people matter. You don't have insurance, you may not transport. If you do transport, that is a crime. You, as the board or president, whatever, are going to jail. That is a crime. You are going to jail. So that's step number one. That isn't all. That's just one step. What will that do? If people are unsafe, the insurance companies will not insure them. Bad players will be removed from the market by default. They won't be able to get insured, or their insurance rates will be so high they can't compete in the market. Either way, they will be removed. Insurance companies will know what individuals are the bad individuals, and they won't insure them. They won't be able to be in upper management. They won't be able to be on the boards. They'll be gone. On top of that, the insurance companies will, by default, go out of the way to create better standards to be safer. Why? Because they care about people. Sadly, Patty, they don't. But they care about payouts. They care about money. If it's a safer environment, they will not pay as much. They will encourage and listen to unionized whistleblowers to make safer environments. How do we know this? You see this already in the health insurance industry. You already see it happening. There's evidence of it happening now. That's piece one. Piece two, no more monopolized unions. Let people unionize as they see fit. Yet let workers be in multiple unions, whatever they want, negotiate how they want to work. But Larry, there might be a strike. Let there be a strike. It's okay. There could be a strike. Maybe some workers will work, some won't, multiple unions, whatever. But then workers will get what they think is appropriate. They'll be safer. They'll be happier. When you have monopolized unions and the government runs them, you have what's already happened. 3 years of no contract, unsafe trains, and accidents like this. So end that. Lastly, an EVU, an environmental victims unit, to where now a group of people who are, I think, state level, you can go federal if you wanted to. I'm not going to fight on you. Either case, you have it to where this group of people who are activists and lawyers, they are actively able to create a case against individuals within organizations who made decisions that affected others. And those people can be charged either civilly or criminally, depending upon what the situation is. Obviously, they would know better than I would, but they are actually affected personally. If we actually affect them personally, that will change the culture of those decisions that are being made. Right now, decisions are made that affect thousands of people, and then they go off to lunch. And that's it. And that's the end. Never think again. But But if actually they had to worry about themselves, they may be actually affected personally, it would change how they act and the things they say. This is how we actually fix things. I hope that was clear. I hope that makes sense for many of you. If you could, guys, as I always say, do me a favor, retweet this if you can. It does matter if you're on Twitter. If you're not, click the like button no matter what. I'm going to let you guys know. Thank you so much for watching. I hope it was clear. I will see you all very soon.